Hi guys, welcome to the latest episode of Cricket Draft Insight. Slightly different video today. I wanted to look ahead to some of the other competitions and games that Cricket Draft hopefully going to run this year. Previously mentioned T20 Blast, One Day Cup, T20 World Cup, Charlotte Edwards Cup. So I just wanted to identify a few players that I'm really keen, really excited to select. First and foremost, before we go any further, I will just give a little bit of attention to the county championship. I know I've mentioned this guy a few times. Really got my hopes up for Bias Swanepoel, who has joined Kent. He's coming straight in as my captain this week. If he scores runs, he's going to score them quickly. I'm not necessarily expecting consistency, but I believe he can smack a few sixes, achieve that strike rate bonus and rack up a few points. That first class bowling average of 19. We can probably compare him a bit to somebody like Miguel Pretorius, who has had some peaks and troughs. He's been at Somerset this year. He's played for one or two other teams before. Did take a few wickets the other day. Curious to me that Swanepoel, age 26, hasn't had any South African recognition, but he's got a phenomenal record. Kent, not necessarily a great bowling unit at the moment. They're missing the experience of somebody like Hogan. Matthew Parkinson took some wickets the other day, even if he went for a few runs, and we are expecting it to be dryish this week, I think. But yeah, straight in there with Swanepoel, and actually, I think he's on an all format deal for the summer. So T20 Blast One Day Cup. I think Kent have maybe signed 3 or 4 overseas players. So I'm not sure how they're gonna manage that, but if it ends up being a damp squib, but I've mentioned this guy a few times. Bias Swanepoel, big hope for me for the weeks ahead, potentially across all competitions. Actually, I mean, I'll come to a few more, but once we get to the T20s, I don't know how I'm going to accommodate all the all-rounders that I want. Onto the T20 Blast, a player that I'm a big fan of is Ashton Turner. Now, he historically has been listed as a batter, but he does bowl a bit, so it'll be interesting to see what he's listed as. I was looking at his career record yesterday, and actually he doesn't have as many wickets as I thought he might have. He is kind of a part-time bowler. What I like about Ashton Turner, I've always found myself when I followed the Big Bash is following Perth Scorchers, which is not because I'm any kind of glory supporter. I think they were just the first time I watched it, they were on, and I just really liked a number of their players. People like Behrendorff. But Turner, we see a lot of batters in T20 cricket. They gravitate towards the opening roles, and I've previously spoken about we have people like Liam Livingstone, Sam Curran can maybe bat in the top 6, and there was a time where you could have said if we had Butler, Bairstow, somebody like Salt, an aggressive opening batter, you could like bookend the innings, have like opening batters down at 6, 7 or 8. And if I talk about 1 or 2 New Zealand players, we'll come to that. But Turner has sort of stayed in that middle order. He's quite good at absorbing pressure, then hitting some sixes, which does bring the case. I think there might have been an example last year where he got out and maybe it was like a strike rate penalty. But he's quite good at doing a bit of a rescue job, but then still capable of clearing the ropes. I know he's just coming back from injury. Played a couple of innings in the IPL. I think he scored 5 and 16. I think he played in the IPL a few years ago and had a bit of a horror show. But like he hit a couple of sixes the other day, and I just think he's a very intelligent, very pragmatic cricketer, and just a player I really like. So certainly eyeing him up for being in my T20 Blast squad as he was last year. Moving on to the One Day Cup, that would be really interesting because we know players go off to the 100, and I'm just thinking, who was I thinking of? Swanepoel, there was somebody else. Oh, Kashi Fali was one, unless he already has. The sort of player, if he had a good blast, could maybe get signed for the 100, and then maybe that opens avenues for somebody like Ollie Cox, who is a player I've mentioned. But in the One Day Cup, I'll pick out Luke Benkenstein, who's been absolutely tearing it up in the second 11. Did very well in the Under-19 World Cup. Tazim Ali is another player we could mention. We could speculate for the T20 Blast. Benkenstein scoring runs, taking wickets. And I did wonder in the county championship if it had been the Kookaburra Ball for a few more weeks, whether he actually might have played instead of Noah Tain. Benkenstein, he did well. He took a 5-wicket haul a few years ago, and then he was injured. But I mean, like, this lad's doing really well bat and ball. I think he looks like sensational talent. So thinking ahead to the One Day Cup, if maybe the T20 Blast too. But he's a player, an all-rounder who I'll have my eye on. For the T20 World Cup, one or two, Michael Bracewell was somebody I had big hopes for last year in the Blast, and it didn't quite work out. Pleased to see him back fit, doing well. And when I speak about what I was saying about the batting orders earlier, New Zealand, he's been a bit usurped by Glenn Phillips and Rachin Ravindra. But Bracewell, maybe he struggles to get in the 11 with those players. But you could have all three of those in a top 6. And that's like 12 out of 20 overs. So it would allow you to have, if you've got players like Finn Allen at the top, who saw somebody like Tim Robinson come in, you could still have very destructive batters come in at, at 8 or 9. And like I say, really bookend those innings by smacking a few sixes and just batting down the order in the same way that you do, players do at the top of the order. Anyway, where I'm going with this for the T20 World Cup is Tristan Stubbs. Now, he's a player I saw in the 100, and I just liked him immediately. He did play a test match for New Zealand, for South Africa. Was it against New Zealand? Or it was one, I think it was a really challenging pitch, and he only scored 3 and 1. He wasn't the only player to fail. But he did score 300 in a first-class game. And similar to Donovan Ferreira, who's just got a run out in the IPL, and he's going to be playing for Yorkshire in the T20 Blast, and will hopefully be in my team as wicketkeeper. Stubbs, he scores runs quickly. In fact, the other day, I think he scored 70-odd in the IPL. 6 sixes or something like that, 70-odd or 30-odd. Sometimes he bowls, sometimes he keeps wicket. It'd be interesting to see what he's listed as. I'm tempted to say he's just listed as a batter because he doesn't always bowl. He's not normally the wicket keeper. So that'll be interesting to see what he is listed as. But he is in South Africa's T20 World Cup squad, and just a player I really like. Really instinctive pick for me. Obviously did well in the One Day World Cup competition, so hoping to do well in the T20 World Cup competition, as I am hoping to do well in all competitions. We'll come to the Charlotte Edwards Cup shortly. Another player, I mentioned Ashton Turner, another player I wanted to talk about actually as a potential T20 Blast selection is Chris Green, who has played in the Blast before, and he's joined Lancashire this year. And whereas Turner is sort of a batting all-rounder maybe, Green is more of a bowling all-rounder, which might put people off. But he's a good fielder. He's very tight with the ball. Finally got capped by Australia. Just one cap seems a bit harsh to me. I know he had some issues with his bowling action a few years ago. He can bat too. He's played a bit more 50 over and first class cricket. Lancashire obviously not having a great time in the county championship. But Chris Green, just as another player across the competitions, is one that I really like. And like I say, amongst the Ryan Higgins, who I thought kicked on as a T20 player last year, Jordan Thompson, Benny Howell, Swana Powell, and the other few Australian players that I'm mentioning, somehow hoping to get in my T20 Blast squad. Just onto the women's game, the Charlotte Edwards Cup. Georgia Adams is one who I think a lot of people will be aware of. Seems quite unfortunate not to have played for England, and another player who seems unfortunate not to have played for England. And admittedly, I haven't followed women's cricket historically as closely as I have men's. But Katie Levick, from sort of Northern Diamonds, she's got some sensational stats. Now, there are a few players who have some sensational stats, and some of those players seem to have come and gone a bit. I don't know if they're studying or gone away or whatever. One or two players I've got my eye on. I think she averages about 14 with the ball. So I'm definitely eyeing having her in my team. potentially even as a captain, although obviously if you've got all-rounders, you know, who can score some runs too. But she seems a hugely exciting, likely candidate to be in my squad. So yeah, just a few players there that I'm really excited about. I mean, I touched on one or two others, not as in depth. Like I said, Ollie Cox, who I know went and spent a bit of time with Canada's squad and didn't get picked in their World Cup squad. He scored a few runs in the second 11. Tazim Ali, what we saw of him in the under-19 World Cup, I mean, he's played one day game. I would have thought, I mean, I'd like to see him in the Blast, but they have Lintop, Briggs, Mosley. They've got lots of spinners, haven't they? James Wharton is one who's been unfortunate. I saw that 100 he scored last year in the Blast. He had a little luck and he didn't score a lot of other scores, but he looked very good in pre-season, in T20s, and I think because of the Brook Root situation, which is great that they've been able to play, but it just means something like Wharton hasn't played any first team cricket, which is a bit of a shame. But like Luxton and one or two others, just extremely consistent in the second 11 for Yorkshire. So I hope he gets some opportunities, at least in white ball cricket, and probably in the county championship actually, later in the season when Root and Brook aren't around. Probably missed some players I really like. There's definitely a crew of Australian all-rounders. I feel like I've missed somebody obvious that I really like. But yeah, hopefully, you know, hopefully more games to come. Lots of exciting players to pick. And that's the great thing, actually, because when you get to the T20 Blast and the One Day Cup, you know, I talk about Ryan Higgins, who last year did finish with some runs in the T20s when he wouldn't instinctively be a T20 selection. You know, you might have those consistent performers, like I like what Miles Hammond has done this year, but his T20 record isn't as good, and he has been at the 100 before, so will he be in the One Day Cup? So do I want to pick those players? But you also have the opportunity to freshen things up. Like in my team, I've been quite consistent with my county championship 11 and squad, but I've just generally made a change to freshen it up. But the opportunity across the competitions, particularly the One Day Cup with the way things go, and the T20 Blast, because players will be at the World Cup. Oh, Surrey, because they've signed Johnson, of course, because they've lost a lot of players to the T20 World Cup. So it just allows you to, just exciting, isn't it? Freshen it up and pick some different players. So yeah, I hope you're looking forward to those games. Hope you're enjoying the county championship. Still a lot more twists and turns in the county championship. I'm currently in 377th place, and I think I'm reasonably well set up this week, seeing as some people keep saying they're only going to have about four players, although typically I'll get, you know, 10 out, and people with 2 or 3 will get more points than me. But fingers crossed for a decent week. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know any players you've got your eye on, you know, around the world for you know, any competitions that are coming up, any players you're really excited to select or you think might break through. And like I say, thank you very much for watching. How's that?